Hello. Starting out early in the morning today because today is going to be hot. And I don't want to end up rage quitting the way I have in previous streams when it's been, sweat streaming down my face hot. Figure I'd start the stream early while it's nice and cool. Enjoy myself. Get a little bit of structure building done. And then by the time it starts to heat up, shut off the stream and rage on my own time. Alright, today I'm looking at the city of Dryker. And my goal is just to sort of assess what's left to do, because there are a lot of structures in this city that are sort of empty. I want to make sure the flags are set correctly, and then I think I want to fill in some of these structures with things like bookshelves, and I know there's at least one store that needs to have a store owner placed inside of it. So yeah, and along the way I might fix a few bugs with the flag system. There have been a couple that have been bugging me, no pun intended. Alright, so first off I see that I have not set any flags for the city of Dryker, and that's not good. Flags are what structures use to spawn different object types, and it's also what they use, what furniture items like bookshelves use to spawn the books on their shelves. We have all these different kinds of, say, tables, right? And they correspond to different wealth levels. Like this would be a table for a poor person, while this would be a table for a wealthy person. And these flags are set on the furniture. In the properties. Base size, huge. Base rarity, common. Wealth is wealthy and aristocracy. Alignment is everybody. Occupation, everything, etc., etc. So every single object in the game has flags like that. And then in the city, which is the uppermost level of this world item hierarchy, in the city I can set these flags here to sort of filter out some of those flags. So if this is a really, really wealthy city, I can say, well, I only want you to spawn wealthy furniture. Or if it's a mixture of, extreme upper class, aristocracy, and then the poor, I can do that as well. In this case, Dryker is middle class and wealthy, and there's very few poor people here. At lower levels, you have cities, districts, and then areas. At the lower levels, I can add flags back. So at the city level, I mask them out and say, okay, this is what we don't want in the city. And then at lower levels, I can add them back in. So if I say we don't have the poor at the city level, but if over here in this little district I want to make this a poor area, I can put that flag back. Alignment is those four. Occupation, we don't have aristocracy, we have the guild. We have priests. We have doctors, we don't have librarians. No linguists, we have farmers. Definitely have prostitutes. There's a whole plot line about a brothel in Drager. No professors, no hermits. Furriers, engineers, geologists, yes. Archaeologists, yes. Shopkeepers, yes. Innkeepers, definitely. Bartenders, miners for sure. No fishermen, no miller, no armor, no butcher, no baker. There are a few bandits, and there are some servants. Okay. The region is in Apple Valley. Subjects, this is going to control, this is mostly for book spawning, although it can also control what objects show up in a shop. I'm just going to set that to everything for now. Faction is settler, there's very few warlocks here. Character body can be anything. Gender is everything. General age is everything except ancient. Ethnicity is everything. Credentials, okay, we don't have to set those here. Alright. And we'll duplicate most of this for the actual structure flags. I'm going to switch over to debug to just copy and paste the actual flag numbers here, since I'm just duplicating them. That little drop down is handy when you don't know exactly what you want to pick, but once you know. Okay, random resident template names. I forget what that is. It's interesting, but it doesn't really matter. If I don't know what it is, then it doesn't contribute to the object spawning. Okay. Flint Steel, good to see you. Matt, good to see you. Oh man, I can already feel it heating up. It's going to be in the 90s today, which isn't that bad, but you've seen how the heat affects me. It really gets under my skin. Alright, so we've set the resident and structure flags for the city. Now I'm going to start looking at the districts. We've got the lower class district. Oh, what do you know? The example I was using of the lower class district was a lower class district. What is this over here? Is this the mining district? It's kind of hard to see, but these are nested, and at the top we have the city, then we have the districts, and it's kind of hard to see. If I shut off all the locations, I'm going to disable these so I can actually see. There we go. Okay, so this is the lower class district, that's fine. Saloon District is all these over here. Okay, good, good. That has the brothel, and it has this shop in here, which is one of the ones that we have to fill out. So far, this structure is almost totally empty. It just has a shopkeeper. So that's one of the ones we're going to be creating today. Upper class district. Okay, we've got, well, that's rather large. Why are you so big, upper class district? We have the Temple of Bislan. What are these? What on earth are these mining houses doing in the upper class district? The moneylender and the guild master house makes sense. But these guys should be in their own little thing. Oh, maybe what I was doing was... Okay, I remember this now. The upper class district is very large, which means that it'll spawn relatively far away, right? Like the view distance is pretty far away. Like if I'm on this rock, I'll be able to see these structures. And these little guys made for such a tiny district group that they wouldn't spawn until you were right on top of it, but they're on the outskirts of town, so they're the first thing you see. So I moved them into the upper class district, which is a little confusing, but nobody's gonna know. And I'm not setting any override flags on these, so that's fine. I'll leave those there. Brewery District. That's these guys. This is another structure that we have to fill in. This is only the foundations, but you'll see when I load up the structure in the structure editor that that one's actually coming along. Okay, and then Crossroads District. This is where here's the guild chapter house, right next to the this little courtyard, which is where you meet one of the main characters. Okay, that's good. That refreshes my memory. So the next thing I've got to do is make sure I have enough of these little navigation nodes. These are what characters use. Yeah, it looks like I've set this up already. These blue nodes are what characters use to walk around the city, NPCs and the like. And you want to make sure that they're covering the major walkways. And it looks like I've taken care of that. I've even got them walking through these alleys here, so that's fine. What's the best idea to gain popularity in Kickstarter project? We're planning to do a big Kickstarter of our game, but with lack of publicity, I'm afraid it'll turn into a big disaster. And of course, lack bigger fan base. Oh man. I deal with similar questions every day because, you know, Frontiers is its own thing, but we're working on and publishing all these other indie games. And publicity is really the big hurdle. It's been a while since I ran my Kickstarter, and I haven't really been keeping my finger on the pulse. I know people are more skeptical these days, you know, because of projects that turned out like mine. And then there have been the really high-profile projects that have sort of been exploding, like Star Citizen and what was the Mighty Number 9? That was a mess. So I don't know if the same rules that helped my Kickstarter project really apply to yours, because I was riding the wave as it was crashing, and at this point, public trust is at an all-time low. I would say today, more than anything, you need a functional demo. There was a Kickstarter for the new System Shock remake that had all the signs of a project that wasn't gonna go well at first, early on. But then, you know, like people were skeptical. They were saying, well, you know, it's a big project. The team's small, the budget's small, and so on. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this mesh structure. Hopefully it doesn't crash. But then they released a working demo, and it sort of calmed everyone's fears, including my own, because I'm as skeptical as anyone else, having been through it all myself. I'm as skeptical as anyone else of developers claiming they can do a big project with very little money. But this demo that they released was pretty solid. It wasn't very big. I think it only had like 20 minutes of gameplay tops, maybe even less. But it was enough for anyone to look at and say, yeah, they know what they're doing. Like, this thing runs. So I don't know what your game is. Do you want to link it? I can take a look. I mean, I'm always curious. Yeah, my suggestion would be to launch with a demo, a free downloadable demo that anyone who wants to verify that you know what you're doing can play immediately. Because first of all, that'll help with word of mouth after the launch. It's again, I don't have my finger on the pulse, but it still seems rare enough so that when it happens, people will say, hey, in the same way that they used to just refer their friends to cool Kickstarter projects, they'll refer their friends to a Kickstarter project with a demo. As for getting publicity leading up to the launch, that's a hard one. One of the reasons why people found out about Frontiers is because A, it was an insane project, that a couple of people really shouldn't have been trying to tackle, and that was part of the story. The Elder Scrolls by 2 people. B, I launched on Indiegogo and it failed, or it was gonna fail, and so I canceled it and went on to Kickstarter, and that caused a big hoopla. So on the day that we launched, I already had all the Indiegogo people who'd been sold on the concept, and they pledged immediately on the Kickstarter, and that bumped us up in like the kick track lists and got us a lot of attention. I'm not really sure how you could recreate that, unless you went with something like Steam Greenlight to build up like a minor fan base that can immediately pledge on launch. But then Steam Greenlight has been changing too. It's so choked with garbage that it's harder than ever to gather like a respectable number of people. So I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a hard question. And this all hinges on whether or not your game concept is cool and sellable and can be described in like half a sentence. Like a 4 or 5 word sentence made up of simple words. Okay, so as I've been yammering on and on, feel free to ask follow-up questions. Like, I'll do my best to provide insight. As I've been yammering on and on, I've been sort of taking stock of what I've got in this structure, and so far it's pretty bare. I mean, the structure itself seems filled in, more so than I expected. But we've just got some really basic furniture, and then a shop that really doesn't have much going on. There's no shelves or anything. So the first thing I'm going to do is fill in this shop. And it looks like I've made some decisions about furniture and things. There's 2 different ways to place furniture in Frontiers. The first is you can see these little green and blue things on this table. That's an object placeholder. And, oh no, those are receptacle pivots. Okay, slightly different, but the same principle applies. With an object placeholder, I can place it without actually choosing what kind of object it's going to be. I can just say, large piece of furniture or large chair, and then it will pick an appropriate chair based on the flags that I was setting earlier. Or I can just place the piece of furniture here, and then it circumvents that process, and whatever I put in here is just what shows up. It looks like I've made those choices for this room back here, and for these crates. And it's been a long time since I've looked at the structure, but my guess is because this is intended to be a one-off Draker structure, I don't mind just making that choice and just saying, okay, this is going to be like a middle-class shopkeeper bedroom. Same with the light fixtures. Those can change depending on the flags, but I just set the lights as is. But because populating the cities is taking longer than I expected, I think I'm going to at least use placeholders for the shelves and whatnot in the shop, because I might need to use this structure elsewhere, possibly in Fraud Leak. Yeah, so I'm going to fill out the shop right now, and I'm going to do it with placeholders. The project was at the beginning a competition project that was developed for 2 weeks, but we decided to expand on it. I've been hearing about that happening a lot, actually. Lots of contests and, like Game Jam games that are getting expanded on. It's kind of interesting. So currently we only release screenshots of the game, but we are preparing a demo. It will basically be, if all works out, a multiplayer game where space rovers are battling it out on a moon versus aliens. Okay, sounds fun. I'm a little confused though. If you developed it for 2 weeks for a competition project, shouldn't you already have a demo? Like, or are you saying you developed it for 2 weeks and never finish it, and you're expanding on it now? Or what? The concept sounds like it could be fun though. Like, what genre is it? Is it a... Let me make sure I didn't miss it. Yeah, is it 2D, 3D? I mean, you might as well start working on your pitch while we're here, right? Okay. Now, as I'm panning around, you can probably see these other placeholder items in the wall, but they're sort of all grayed out. Those are actually part of the prefabs, the wall prefabs, and they're a convenience thing because I can just select the prefab and click Save to Structure, like I did on the one I'm working on right now, and set it to a painting or a wall fixture, or like a light fixture or something like that. And then when I save the structure, it'll go through all the walls and ask, okay, are there any placeholders that I need to save here? Oh, look at that. The wall lights on the outside I've set as placeholders. I've been approaching this design schizophrenically. Things change. But anyway, yeah, it just makes it easier to set things like light fixtures and stuff. You can see them in the columns too. Here, I'm going to set this to be a shelf. and we're going to set which objects are going to spawn on it. Da, 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 da. Right now I'm browsing through all my categories of objects. Okay, store display shelves. I'm going to check and see if store display shelves is actually the category I want here. It sounds right, but it might not mean what I think. Store display shelves. What have we got? Okay, it's just display shelves. It's not actually like shelving. I know it's not racks because that's just like weapon racks. Large tables, large beds. No, no, no. General store goods, no. Display shelves. Okay. Here we are. Here we are. Okay, so it's not store display shelves. It's just display shelves. Okay, and the flags, this is where if I don't want our city flags to apply, I can set these, and I think I do want to set these. I want to set these to cover pretty much everything because this is supposed to be like a sort of a nexus in this world. So we're going to say it has goods from just about everywhere except the Uncharted, obviously. On just about every subject, from every faction. Okay. Then if it's a container, we have to do the same thing. And this isn't a container, this is just... No, it is a container. Shelves are technically a container. Okay, glad I checked. Yeah, we developed a small single-player experience for a competition, but it was graphically and gameplay-wise something that we wanted to change a lot. So we're basically making another demo to show those capabilities. It's a 3D game. Okay. I'm going to click this. We're going to take a look. Oh, that's cool. Oh, so sort of like little, like Martian rover style thing. So is it like battle bots but with rovers? Is that the idea? Get these set. We will not be spawning specific items. Okay, and we're generating random items from a category, and that category is going to be store goods, right? Where is our general store goods category? We don't just want to spawn weapons, armor and clothing. Common items isn't quite right. Curiosity shop items, no. General store goods, there we are. Okay. Good. Okay, then we want to max spawns to 1. We're setting the spawn code and spawn index to -1. That's to indicate that we want it to be random. Container settings, number of items 10. Yeah, we're not filling the bank. That's like a purse. Number of items randomness slight. Yes, fill interval. We're going to say weekly because it's a store. Fill time on open, on visible because it's a shelf. So we don't want it to only fill when you open it like you would with a box or a barrel. Okay, good. So that is our display shelf. Now we're going to duplicate that several times. Because I'm not setting the spawn code or the spawn index, those are things which determine the randomness. It's like a seed. Because I'm not setting those, it means that these shelves could all end up being different models. It's not totally likely because it's, there's not a million different models for every wealth level or whatever. But because of the nature of this store, I'm comfortable with that. I think it's going to be okay. Right, and I'll move you guys over a little bit so you don't intersect. In a perfect world, I would be able to preview the model that it's likely going to choose as I place them. Instead, I just have to sort of rely on my own knowledge of how big this stuff is. All right, then I'm going to make one more, and this one actually is going to be a display case. Store display shelves with the same settings, so that'll appear in the middle of the store and just sort of fill it out. Okay. Lastly, oh, come on. I'm going to put a few goods back here behind the store grate here, and what will happen is, and I'll have to remember how to do this, I can specify that these are owned by the owner character, and so when you barter with him or her, they will show up in the bartering interface. So it's a little like having some extra shelves, but without having to, actually render them. I use this a lot in some of the university structures. We've just got a whole bunch of crates and stuff sitting behind a locked door. They have distance firepower, so they can use ballistic weapons and rocket systems. We were basically trying to sell the idea of deep customization features. We'll try to make everything on the rovers replaceable, and it will affect the stats of the rover itself. That's all cool. I'm thinking more about like all the stuff you're telling me is stuff that I would want to know after I'm already sold on the general concept. You guys need a pitch. You might already have one and you're just not saying it, but you need a really, really simple pitch that'll get people's attention before you even get to the customization stuff, or the details of combat or whatever. When I said battle bots with the Mars rover, is that close to the idea? Because that would be a pitch. You know, even if I'm wrong about that concept, like that's the first thing that you've got to work out if you're going to try and sell this idea to people. Is something that you can just say in one line that'll catch their attention, and it doesn't have to have all the details. It just has to capture like the core concept that you're going for. Okay, so in order for these to show up the way we want, we set them to shop goods instead of personal effects. And now when we barter with this shopkeeper, oops, we'll be able to access that crates or barrels goods in the whatchamacallit, the bartering interface. Okay, so this guy's set to settler manager. That's fine. That's all good. I'm going to call this structure, I'm going to call this structure good. Or the store good anyway. There's one little area in the actual structure that I want to make sure is filled out. And that's this in here. I don't really know what... I mean, it appears to be a storefront. And it's self-contained. It doesn't look like it opens into the other areas. So I'm going to say this is another store. I just realized, though, this is interesting. I don't think I support multiple shopkeepers per structure. There can only be one shopkeeper. So if you're dealing with this shopkeeper, like this shopkeeper over here would also own all the goods over here. I suppose it's not a big deal. We could just have no visible shopkeeper in here and put the shelves in here. It'll be a little weird, but you'd still be able to buy stuff off the shelves. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. We're going to put some more shelves in this area. It'll just be like another little wing of the shop. Maybe I can change this. Okay, that's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. I'll change this. We'll turn this into a hallway. Then it'll be connected. And you can just walk through to this other area. Okay, that makes more sense. Sort of like one of those little sprawling, consignment shops. We're basically... Okay. Yeah, that's you haven't typed anything new. Hopefully what I'm saying about the pitch makes sense. It's so easy to forget that side of things. The only reason why it's so ingrained in me is because of my filmmaking background. And I tried to get a movie finance. If you ever want an uphill battle If you ever want to just make yourself miserable by trying to get a hold of other people's money for a project, try to get a feature film financed, like an independent feature film. It is a nightmare. The number of meetings I had to suffer through where, I was sweating and I just felt ill at ease, and, I just had no idea how to sell something. I had no idea how to sell people on a concept. It was trial by fire for sure, but, you go through that a couple of times, and it doesn't take long to realize that there's a really specific way that you can sell people on a concept, and anything outside of that really specific way, it tends not to work, except on really unique individuals. You need something that can be summed up in one sentence, and it has to sound strong and appealing in that one sentence. And if you can do that, then you can get people to listen to you for the details. What I find, what I had to go through when I was, constructing my pitches for the movies, and what I see a lot of indie devs going through, is expertitis, I guess you could call it, where instead of focusing on what a player or an average person will find interesting about your project, you focus on what you find interesting about your project. And usually what you find interesting about your project is the thing or things that differentiate it from other similar projects. For instance, if I'm making a first-person shooter, I might say, the way I might pitch it to someone, a player or whatever, might be, oh, well, it's a first-person shooter where, every weapon can be assembled from pieces of junk that you find lying around you, and there's no limit to the amount of junk that you can, attach to your weapons, and blah, 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 and, your weapons just keep getting bigger and bigger and more powerful. And I might focus on this one mechanic that was sort of the spark of inspiration for the whole thing, and which is the technical thing that interests me, that I find exciting. But meanwhile, the player that I'm explaining it to is sort of, their eyes are glazing over, and I'm like, why are you losing them? This is so interesting. But it's not. You've skipped the interesting part, and you're into the minutia, way before you're supposed to. You have to have them by the throat before they're going to listen to you talk about your junk weapon customization system. The first thing that they need to understand is what you're doing in this world. When you're plopped down into this world and the game says go, why do you move forward? What are you doing? What's your purpose in this game world? You have to be able to convey that really quick. You have to contextualize why putting junk onto your weapons is an interesting and exciting idea. To you, it's interesting and exciting because it's novel, and because you find the technical details interesting. These are both things that your average player doesn't give a shit about. You know what I mean? They don't care about what's novel. They care about what's fun. So anyway, not the best example, because I made it up on the fly, but hopefully that makes sense. It has some characteristics of BattleBots, but it's on a bit bigger scale. It'll have fast-paced gameplay similar to Counter-Strike in the FPS genre. We have everything written out, but we are removing and rebuilding certain ideas every day. ASMR stream. Hello, Justin. Good to see you. What do you mean ASMR stream? Are you asking if this certainly isn't intended to be one, if that's what you mean? Yeah, good to hear that you're iterating. That's good. But again, like stuff like having it be battle bots, but on a bit bigger scale. That's not bad, but again, that's like a game dev detail. Fast-paced gameplay, similar to Counter-Strike, it's not bad, but it's kind of a game dev detail. You gotta sell it in terms of you gotta sell emotional impact. Like I need to feel like an emotional impact when you tell me what's going on. If you told me, robots battling on Mars, I would think, oh, well, that's interesting. You are a robot battling on Mars. That would make me stop and think. That makes me think about what it feels like to play the game. Even though I don't really have very many details yet, at least I get a feeling. If you just tell me it's like BattleBots but a bit bigger scale, it's like, okay, well, I understand BattleBots, so I'm kind of in the right headspace. But when you say a bit bigger scale, it's like that doesn't quite translate into an emotion. If you were to say it's like BattleBots but insane, like that's slightly better. Because when I hear the word insanity, I pictured like total chaos and madness, and I think, okay, well, I kind of see what headspace he's trying to put me in. Yeah, hopefully what I'm saying makes sense. Got to think in terms of emotion. You got to sell the emotion of it first. Then come the technical details. Then come the details that make it novel with respect to other games in the genre, etc., etc. Okay, you also need work, don't you? Yeah, you're mostly empty. You just set the shopkeeper. Okay, I'm gonna respawn this guy just to make sure I'm working with the latest version. Something else I would say is don't get frustrated by how hard it is to do what I'm describing. Because you're gonna have to do it 50, 100 times before you find a pitch that makes people listen. It's just another skill. You got to do something 100 times before you're remotely competent at it. And until you are competent, you're gonna feel frustrated. Think about your first program you've ever written, or the first drawing you ever tried to do, or your first model. Those are a little easier to swallow because we sort of know we suck at those going in. We say, okay, I'm going to learn this now, and my work is going to be really, really rough for a little while. But with the idea of selling your concept, there's this sort of thought process that if you make a good game, it's going to sell itself, and you're not really going to have to work that hard at making it happen, and this is not true. We all sort of have like an intuitive idea, a sort of an intuitive template of how screenshots and logos and things like that are supposed to work, not because we've studied them formally, but just because we're inundated with them. We see them. We just see them constantly, day after day. Display shelves. And so we sort of internalize how those are supposed to work, how they're supposed to look. But the same is not really true of pitches and, you know, the salesmanship behind a good game. It's a little more subtle. And so when the time comes for someone to do it, I think they kind of assume that they should be good at it in the same way that, you know, most people are pretty good at taking a good screenshot, you know, like a representative screenshot. Nobody takes a picture of the wall. You know, they choose sort of a vista. You know, like the screenshot that you showed me was totally decent. And my guess is you didn't have to try that hard to take that one. But when they start butting up against the idea of a pitch and coming up with a good pitch, and it's just not happening, I see people get really frustrated. You know, because their intuition is failing them. They actually have to work at it. So I'm just saying, don't get frustrated. Just accept that the ideas you come up with are going to suck for a little while. Just like any first work sucks, and power through it and just keep doing it. Anti-human. Yeah, early stream. I'm doing it real early, so the heat doesn't get to me. It's still pretty nice and cool. It's heating up. I can feel it actually. The sun is hitting this side of the house now, and I can feel it. But I should wrap up before it gets too bad. So you won't see any tantrums today, I hope. We also need a lot of studying of other examples. When I saw Frontiers for the first time on Facebook, I thought to myself, this is all I wanted from an open world game. Seeing your dedication to the project, it's not seeing your dedication for the project. It's not will it be finished, only when it will be finished. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. Now, I'm not like an amazing salesman. I'm not an amazing like concept developer or elevator pitcher or whatever you want to call it. I have been doing it for a while. So think about what it was that you saw about Frontiers that made you think, aha, this is the game I want. Because that didn't happen by accident. You know what I mean? It took a lot of work to figure out exactly what to say and what to show people so that it would put that idea in their head, so that they would understand what I was going for immediately, you know, with just a few images or just a line of text. So, you know, just go on Steam, just spend a couple hours on Steam. Just go through every game you can find, doesn't matter what genre. Just click next, 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 and take note of the ones that grab you and the ones that don't, right? Like, really try to pay attention and introspect and figure out which ones you like and which ones, which ones catch your attention and hold your attention and which ones just sort of slide off your brain. And try to ask yourself, okay, what was it? What did that? Was it their catchphrase? Was it their screenshot? Was it the title? Figure out what it is and then figure out why it worked. And then try to apply that to your own game. Because like I said, it was no accident that you saw Frontiers on Facebook and you actually gave a damn. Because I am not by any means the only developer who's attempted a game like this. There are lots of other open world games out there with similar goals. But a lot of their branding and their pitches is just miserable. I only know about their existence because I deliberately sought them out. Um, I needed examples and I needed to see who else had tried and whether they'd succeeded and so on. If not for that, I never would have found these things. Because even if they'd showed up in a banner ad or something or whatever, I just wouldn't have remembered it. Tacoma guy here. It's murder out there. Sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, you know my struggle. I've been playing a lot of Audio Shield lately. I love that game. It's probably my favorite VR game. But let me tell you, man. And I've been playing at the higher difficulty levels, so there's a lot of movement. I am soaked in sweat by the end of these sessions. It is brutal, in this weather in particular. And I think I'm even starting to get like rift face, like permanent rift face. Like I saw like a splotch on my forehead this morning, just because like when you're wearing the thing and then you're sweating on the thing and it's just horrible. And I have to wash the foam every day, you know, like because it's like a sponge, like it soaks up your sweat. I have to. It says not to soak it. You're not supposed to soak it in water, but I have to. I soak it in a little tray and I have to squeeze out the water with paper towels. Actually, this makes me really happy about the design of the PlayStation VR. I had never held one of these things before the dev kit arrived. I honestly thought this was going to be... I mean, it is a cheaper unit, right? It has a lower price point, and I can tell that if I smash it against a wall, it would break. It's not like the Vive, which feels indestructible. But I'll tell you, one area where it totally wins is... well, I'll pop this on my head real quick.